division in the department really has very little marketing dollars in it. So we're looking at, most of that money is for the protocol division within the administration, and that is areas where they go out to communities, they talk to communities about international protocol and things of that nature. So a lot of that money will be reducing some of the travel that's going out into the communities and some of the awareness about protocol that we do for communities and things of that nature. Equipment, we have a small budget in equipment. We're just not going to do any equipment purchases in the amended budget. And then the contract, that is pretty much for the Concur travel system. We have reductions in that of $1,000. So that is the administration division. That's how we're accommodating the $171,000 cuts for that division. Any questions on that, or should I just continue to go through each division? That's fine. Yes, thank you. Okay, film, this is 23.2.1. It's a $46,000 cut. That is all coming out of the marketing division in the film area. And basically what that is, it's going to reduce some website enhancements that we have in the Camera Ready system that we have on our website. So the Camera Ready system is where you, as a person of interest, can go out to our website and look at all the communities that are camera ready. And what it does, it really gives you a roadmap on who to deal with when you're going out to a community or something like that. We wanted to do some upgrades to that and put some stories behind that to basically build up the awareness of that. So with these cuts, we probably won't be able to do that. And then the other cuts of about another 10,000 or so is going to be different sponsorships that we currently, submit to in the year in the film industry. A location expo, we're going to do that. GPP sponsorship, and then Women in Film Atlanta Gala sponsorship. We're going to cut those sponsorships out with these cuts that we have to do. It's important to know that this department, I know some of the questions last week at the joint hearing, they were talking about the hearing marketing and marketing. Our budget is made up 84% of personal services and marketing. So when we're looking for cuts, with the exception of the administration division, there's not a lot of other areas outside of that unless you go to contracts like in the global commerce, which we'll cover a little bit later. So when we're talking about our cuts, we don't have a lot of flexibility in other areas because the lion's share of our budget is made up between marketing and personal services. So with that, we covered the film division. The next division is Georgia Council for the Arts. First amount on that is, there's two pieces of that. There's the arts and then the special project. First piece is for $15,000. That is 23.3.1. That's $15,000, and what we're going to do on that is we're going to get some of the money from rent and some of the money from telecom. Arts has a very small budget in this. Most of their budget is made up of personal services this year because they moved the remaining grant money to the next area on this list, which is the special projects. So that's where we're getting our cuts for the arts division. The next one is 23.4, and that is $40,000. And so we're getting that from actual grants that we do. All the money in that program is all for grants. So the state has $976,000 in grants that we use for special art program. And then the feds put in about $700,000 to $800,000 that they put into the program as well. So what we're doing this year, because a lot of those grants have been evaluated and offered up earlier before we knew of the cuts, we're taking $20,000 from the vibrant communities and $20,000 from the cultural facilities, which is the newest grant that was put in the system this year. So we're taking that $40,000 from those two areas.
Question,
Yes, ma'am.
does this reduce the federal funds we'll be pulling down?
No.
Thank
We've already exceeded that match, so we're okay with that.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is 23.5, that's global commerce. The first piece of that is reduced funds for contractual services of $215,000. The second piece is reduced funds for marketing of $215,000. A few years ago, the legislature was very gracious in giving us money for our China initiative. And so we've made a pivot on that, and we're no longer using an outside contractor, we're actually using an employee who works within our department, and they are actually doing the outreach for the China initiative right now. So we had a lot of savings in that area in contracts, so we're using some of that money and giving it up. We did have plans for that money because right now our most vibrant foreign direct investment partner is South Korea, so we're looking to get more robust there and extend that contract a little bit, but with these cuts, we can see those cuts in the area of contracts there. The other piece is in marketing, and that is just reducing different marketing campaigns. So a lot of our work is done because we're the sales and marketing arm for the state. A lot of our work is done through our website and awareness and things of that nature. So we have to reduce some of our sponsorships. We're going to have to cut back on some of the trade shows and things like that. And a lot of people, they sometimes misconceptualize because people say, well, instead of sending 3 people, send 1 person. Well, that's good if you're doing training, but when you're going to a trade show, people on the ground make a difference, because if I'm going up to your booth and only you're there, that line is going to diminish as opposed to 3 people there being able to give me information about Georgia and talk about that. So just wanted to, go over that a little bit and say, sometimes people say, well, it won't be a problem if you send 1 person as opposed to 3, but really it does make a difference, because when you're on a trade show, you don't want to stand in line. You want to get in and out and get the pertinent information that you need. The next item on this is for our international relations and trade. That's 23.6. And again, very similar to global commerce. We're getting $122,000, $500 for that. And most of that is coming from marketing. Again, I keep reiterating, most of our budget is in between personal services and marketing. So some of the marketing we do there is professional development. We invest in databases, help create tremendously. And really, this division is very important because this is kind of like our connecting point to small business. Coca-Colas and things like that, they really don't need our help in international trade, but small businesses do, and it really makes a big difference. So a lot of our database research and things like that goes out and looks at areas where what our state, companies are creating, and we do research and around the world on who's looking to buy and what they're needing and things like that. And then some of the sponsorships as well that we won't be able to do. Some of them are the Worldwide Trade Center, the Small Business Development Center, Georgia Foreign Trade Conference, all these types of things. We are sponsors at these events because, it's awareness. We're out there, we're there in front of the people showing that Georgia's concerned with their businesses and things like that. So that $122,000 will have a pretty big effect on international trade. They don't have a lot of wiggle room in their budget, but that's kind of where the cuts will be coming from this year. Next item, 23.7, that's rural development. Actually, this one is a pretty easy one. We had a transfer of an individual from one division to the other, and this $75,000 is actually, we're able to bring someone on at a much lower rate. It's a different job. And so that $75,000 is in personal services, and it doesn't really have a negative effect on us or anything like that. So that one was fairly easy. After that, I think we go to 23.8, which is our small business. And again, I mentioned earlier how international trade is kind of our really linchpin to small business. This is called small business, but it's really, the way we operate this division is through our global commerce area. They're out there working with, when we're talking about business, we're talking about all businesses. So we look at everyone, but they do some small business and they do some minority business development and things like that. And so we do a lot in that area. This cut is $40,000. And again, this is going to be reducing some contract money. They don't actually have marketing money, this division, but they have contract money. And that will probably affect, and I don't know if you're all aware of it, but we have an event every year called the Small Business Rockstars. It's been very successful. We go around the state, we find small businesses, we get them to come to the luncheon by GEDA, and it gives them a lot. It's really a boost for them and their business. So we're going to have to cut back on some of that outreach and things like that. So that's the $40,000 that we're going to be taking that cut there. The next one the big one is 23.9. That's tourism. This one we had to go through a number of things there. We're taking money from actual personal services. which is the $344,000. We're also reducing funds in marketing and the closure of the Hartsfield Visitor Information Center. Even though it's closed, the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau still has a presence there, and so we'll still be able to get our literature and travel guides and everything there, and they're still promoting Georgia for us as well. So that was a good transition for us with them. They've been very obliging in helping us continue there. As far as the personal services, we're holding back on 3 positions this year. We're not filling the division director, and we also did a reorg in that division about 8 or 9 months ago. We used to have regional reps around the region in the 9 regions around the state. Part of it is we're looking to maybe rename some of the regions, but also we're looking at that. So much of this industry our one division that is B2C, as everyone else is more B2B. This is B2C, so getting out there, talking to the people, a lot of it is content-driven about tourism. Most tourism decisions and travel decisions are made now via web. People are going out to websites, they're looking at things of interest and things like that. So a lot of that is media relations, it's content-driven. So the 3 positions that we will not be filling, like I said, is a division director. One will be partner relations, and the other will be content. We will still have 2 people in the partner relations and 2 in content. We just won't be able to fill the 3rd on each of those. In the marketing, we have to reduce familiarization tours. Those are tours where we get travel writers from around the world or even the United States, and they come in and focus on an area. We find out, and we talk to the different travel groups around the world. We talked about what Georgia has to offer, and we pique their interest. They then send people here. We take them around the state to show them what Georgia has to offer. Very successful program. We're not eliminating the program, but we're going to have to put some cuts to that program. Social media, like I said, social media is a huge, huge practice in tourism right now. Nice thing about social media is a lot of it is free, but a lot of it you have to pay for media and advertising on that. One of the things we did this year, I don't know if you saw the travel guide, Commissioner Wilson spoke about it last week, but the travel guide picture this year, it was like a collage of photos. It was actually of people, tourists in Georgia, taking pictures while they're on vacation and submitted to us. So all those pictures are done by actual tourists that came to the state. So that's kind of what we've done. We're reducing money in marketing there, the airport VIC, and personal services. So I'd be glad to answer any questions. I know that was a lot, but I'm sure everyone following me is going to have a lot as well.
Does anybody have any questions? Representative Vaughn.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. You'd mentioned from the outset about cybersecurity measures that you've been taking.
Yes, sir.
Now, are those measures that your department is coming up with, or has there been any statewide guidance put out across the departments?
The Department of Audits has a team, and also GTA has a team, so they're kind of giving you some guidance. Like last year, we put in a new thing called dual authentication. So a lot of that, if you're off-site and you want to come in, you're going to have to get a code and things like that. But we have some old service and things like that network. Our core network is over 10 years old. So the biggest problem in IT is when you have things after a certain amount of time, the manufacturers don't support it anymore. And everything is coming, you're throwing so much more information over the networks now that they have to be up to date, they have to be faster. And so we're just trying to do the best that we can. I mean, cyber is hitting everybody, and more and more you have to be focused on that because everyone's trying to get information out of something. Fortunately for us, we don't have a lot of personal information on any of our networks. We're not really exchanging personal information. Some of the things that we're doing with our, the biggest one would probably be our business recruitment group, which is called Global Commerce, when we're exchanging with prospects some very secretive information. So we really have to look at those safeguards. A lot of that information goes into a database called Salesforce that we use. So we're trying the best we can. We'll be able to meet what we have to meet, but this is going to eliminate some of the upgrades that we're going to do to just help speed up processes and things like that.
And thank you for that. And then one other quick question regarding the Georgia Council for the Arts. Mm-hmm. Do you recall offhand what that federal match is?
Yeah, it's between, last year I think it was $776,000. So even though in our budget it shows
Well, but
650.
they match up to what amount?
Well, that's, it used to be, actually a couple years ago, we were underfunding it, so we were actually getting a wave year and letting us carry the federal grant an extra year so we can make it up. Now we're putting in almost $1 million from state funds, and they're at about 700, like I said, 776,000. So we're above the match now.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Cook. Representative Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Excuse me.
If you could, actually, touching on the Georgia Council for the Arts, could you explain what exactly the special projects, what they could be?
Okay,
what they've
so
been in the past?
special projects and partnerships. So there's I guess there's three grants now. We have special project partnership grants, then we have the vibrant communities, and now the newest one is the facilities grants. That just came in this year for $300,000. That's the most unique because that's bricks and mortar type things and something that we really weren't looking into, but the legislature wanted to put that in, and actually we have a number of grant recipients that have made inroads to that and are asking for funding, so we're looking to fund that this year. Special projects is mainly about arts awareness, arts education. If your community has a program or something like that that's promoting the arts or educating the arts, some of it is helping kids, a bus go to a event or something like that. It covers a wide array, but it has to be tied to the arts and things of that.
If you, Representative Cook, if you'd like to, I have a list of all the communities and schools that
Yes.
received the grants. I'd be glad to share it with you, and I'm sure some of yours probably did too.
Yes, ma'am.
And most of those vibrant school grants are like 3,000, 5,000.
Yeah, that's the best one. That
real
was
small.
Yes, $300,000 in that environment communities, but the maximum amount on that is $5,000.
Uh-huh.
And the criteria to meet that guideline is not as stringent as the partner
No,
grants.
Representative Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If you would, looks like to me that your budget cut is about 5%. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you may not have heard this before, but for the last 7 years, Georgia has been named the best place to do business in.
I left that out. I knew someone would mention
Let
that,
the
but
record show
we've been
130.
very
okay?
fortunate. We've been very fortunate.
So let's talk about your impact. What sort of impact are these cuts going to bring on you? Because it looks like to me, according to what I'm hearing you say, is that the largest cuts are going to be coming out of marketing.
Right.
So what's going to be our impact? What's going to be our lost opportunity there that keeps us in that ranking into the future?
I don't know if we'll have, so we had to make a decision, okay? And when you look at global commerce and those other areas and things like that, trade, those people, boots on the ground, are the most important thing. You have to have those people. Over the years, and even for us, for recruiting people and keeping people, through attrition, we've had to repurpose some of those positions' salaries to keep, people on board. So we're doing that. We had a study on our, global commerce, what directors, what deputies make, and everyone like that. And, we can see that we're a little lower than some other states in the Southeast, but that's not even our biggest problem. It's the communities and our, partners, utility partners. They're paying a lot more than we can possibly pay. We've been very fortunate. The legislature has been very gracious in giving us funding, and so we've been able to manage that. The most important thing, I think, on that, though, is having boots on the ground, and we have the people on the ground to do that. Some of the awareness things in marketing, that can have an effect. We don't know how much of an effect it'll have right now, but the nice thing about it is, like you said, the word on Georgia is out. Tourism's good, film's good, great economy, great business climate. You all have put in some really good tax incentives, so 7 years in a row doesn't go unnoticed. And so that, you can carry that momentum for a while. And so I really don't see any negative impact right now. If we do, we'll be the first to let you know, but the boots on the ground is most important right now. And so we're cutting back, and we may do less trade shows, but we're going to be very careful on the trade shows that we choose to make sure that we're going to the best trade shows. We do a lot of market research and market analysis and know what's best going right now, and that's kind of where we put our stock in. Tourism is a little different. Tourism, it's B2C. You have to put a lot into you know, the media and things like that to social media. That is really the driving force there. So that'll be interesting to see how that is, because you do have to have a nice balance of people in marketing. I mean, you can't have inquiries and not have the people there to answer the question. So we think we'll be fine. We've been through this before, and we think we can get through it.
Representative Youngyard?
Chair. You know, I was watching this thing called television last night, and the Grammy Awards was a tremendous asset to my life on last night, because Georgia brought several Grammys home. I noticed when you talk about film and the music component, will that hurt you in reference to promoting, you know, the $6.9 billion or more that we bring in combined?
Well, you know, interesting on the music. So we're doing a current study right now called the Georgia Music Accord, and we put $250,000 at One Georgia thanks to DCA, and it looks like it's moving forward pretty well. They're really positive about that, and that's going to have a Grammy museum, hopefully in the Atlanta area.
I think this is very important because, you know, one gentleman from Atlanta won 2 Grammys last night. Of course, Lizzo didn't win 2 or 3. I was hoping that. But I think promoting those artists that come from Georgia are so important to motivate others. The other thing is we constantly are talking about marketing. In your global commerce department, how many employees do you have?
In global comms, we have 51.
And so are you having
And
a
then
problem?
small business is another 7, and I kind of said earlier, like we kind of meshed them together, so approximately about 60 in that division.
You mentioned a couple of them that make under $40,000 with an additional 1,000.
The biggest is tourism.
Okay.
We have 32 people in tourism that make under $40,000. The starting salary at a visitor information center, and mind you, those are the 11 centers scattered around the state at access points coming into the state. The starting salary on that, now we've bumped that out. That used to be $25,000 only a few years ago. We bumped it up to $26,500. Now we have it up to $28,500. So again, we're having to make a lot of tough decisions to keep people, to entice them to come in, but they do a great job. I mean, they're the face of 13 million people that come through the visitor information centers last year. So we're very grateful that 1,000 was in there, because that means a lot to people. You know, if you're making $25,000, $30,000, $1,000 is a big jump for you. So we're very grateful for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I've got 2 or 3 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask you about the camera ready. You said
Mm-hmm.
you were going to do something different with that. That seems to help a lot of local communities when you have a movie
Absolutely.
come in and make. What is that going to do to the local people and
Well,
the economy of that? It looks like we're cutting
Yeah.
Georgia people.
Well, it shouldn't affect it. So the Camera Ready has been a huge success, and thankfully every county now is aware, and they're certified as Camera Ready communities. So what that means is you can call up and you can come in
I
and look
understand
and
what
say-
it means, but you said you were cutting
well,
something.
what we were doing was we were trying to put more stories behind that. So just more positive reinforcement. Hey, did you know that Fried Green Tomatoes was filmed here, or Forrest Gump was filmed here? So we're trying to put more behind it, more awareness behind it. With the cuts, we just can't take it to that level right now.
So how much was that cut?
That was it $20,000, I believe,
I don't. 46,000
was the total.
was the total.
Yeah, total was 46 for the film industry.
But
we didn't,
I just, it just seemed like a little thing to put a little. I mean, I'm not a.
no,
I can't even operate this, so I'm sure I couldn't operate what was happening for the.
I mean, fortunately, the film industry in Georgia is booming,
Oh, I know it is.
and I mean,
And everybody wants a part of it,
Right.
and I don't want any section of Georgia cut out,
Right,
and it just being
and that is one thing that a small rural community can get.
yes.
They may not get an Amazon, but they can get a movie done there
Yeah.
anytime. And that's a great thing about the film industry. You can get there, and you don't have to put out a lot of infrastructure. You don't have to rebuild schools or highways and stuff. So it's really a win-win for a community, the film industry.
All right, the next thing you said about the outreach on the small and minority businesses that y'all had, you've got a budget over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Could you break that down and give her how that money's spent.
Okay, so
'Cause,
probably about 85% of that budget is personal services.
Okay, because it seems like a little amount to,
They only have $62,000, I believe, in total contracts. So we're basically reducing contracts on that.
well, I
for
mean,
that.
the one thing you were reducing that you pointed out was recognizing people who are doing well.
Well,
when
that
you
was,
had-
well, that's one of the areas where they're spending on their contract money. They don't do a lot else outside of their feet on the ground, going out in communities. That's still gonna happen. The small business rock stars, we're gonna still do that. We just can't promote it to the same level that we have, that's all. But we're still gonna do it, and we're still gonna have the small business rock star event in February or March, but it's just, a lot what we do is awareness. A lot of it is out there letting people know, hey, you qualify for this, put your name in the hat, things like that. Just less awareness for us, less to get out and do that.
Okay, it
But
was
they don't have a lot of other areas to cut in that budget.
out of $1 million?
Well, like I said, about 85 to 90% of that is personal services.
Okay,
Then they only have 60,000 in contracts, and they have a little bit of regular op and telecom and rent, but telecom rent, that doesn't go anywhere, that's kind of steady, so you have to choose what you do.
well, how much more would you need to get this outreach program going?
Well, I guess not have the cut.
Well, you said
I
that
mean-
wasn't the whole thing.
No, but I mean, that's, that was the number they said that they would cut back on that program as far as the awareness and going out there and the outreach to that. We're still gonna be out there in the communities meeting with people, that's not gonna change. But like I said, a lot of these things that we do is awareness, it's trade shows, it's promoting, it's sponsorships.
Well, and
The
like
rock
the
stars-
Georgia Trade Show, you said, I'm not familiar with the Georgia Trade Show, but it would be bad for economic development not to be a part of some people that came to a trade show in Georgia.
Yeah. So,
And
we
it's-
have to.
It seems like y'all just hitting us where.
We have
where-
to reduce those sponsorships. We're not totally out of it, we're just reducing them. Instead of a $10,000 scholarship, we may be at a $5,000 sponsorship.
Okay, well, maybe I misunderstood that you said you wouldn't be participating. You're just,
Some we won't be participating, not all of them. I mean, the Georgia ones we're gonna have a presence at, but some of them that we go out to, like the Sundance Film Festival and film, we may
Yeah.
not attend that this year.
yeah.
That's out west.
Okay.
But we'll do our best in Georgia. We're not gonna eliminate, some we will, but we're gonna have to reduce our presence in some.
Okay, well, the reason it just caught my eye, because that's the one you pointed out,
Yeah.
was the Georgia Trade Show.
Yeah, there's about
and-
5 of them that, that's one of them, Small Business Development Center, the Women's Gala, I mean, so they're just gonna reduce sponsorships.
Okay. Are there any more questions? What about, there was a grant program y'all had, it was something like a Regional Vistas Information Grant. How many of those grants have you given out?
So there's about 62 regional visitor information centers.
Uh-huh.
So those grants, so it was a $150,000 grant. We're using about $23,000 to do this financial calculator, so they can go out and put numbers in and see how effective their advertising has been and things like that, which is very important. And then the remaining about $125,000 or so is going to be used for grants. So the grants are going to be anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000.
So y'all haven't got the grant, it hasn't started?
Yeah,
yet?
we've done the first half of the grants already. The second half will be done in probably about 3 weeks.
Okay. You don't know how many grants, you said,
There's 63, I think, regional visitor informations. I don't know if everyone submitted a
Uh-huh.
request, but we're utilizing all the funds. I know that.
okay.
Like I said, we did the first tranche, and the second half will be going out in 2 to 3 weeks.
Thank you, and thank you for the job you're doing.
Thank you
Any
so
other
much.
questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Black. Page 1. Thank you so much for coming, Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. We appreciate the interaction, Madam Chair, with House Budget Office over the last week, and I think hope we've provided some additional information that you've requested, and this is a bit of a The way we've present this document to you today is the first half of it's obviously 20, and
And
the
that-
second half is
okay.
21. If
Yeah,
it-
this is all we want today,
Yes.
is this supplemental budget.
Yes, ma'am, just 20. And so as we move forward, we'll be talking about those others, but we've tried to do a critical analysis based upon the information that you've asked us for, and it's presented here. I will tell you this, Madam Chair, from a standpoint of that, because it does relate to 21. I had really hoped that we, as many good discussions as all of us had about our needs and, planning and the whole commitment which our agency has had since the day I've been here is to think strategically about everything you do and have a living, breathing document that you live by. That's what we have, and so that's not new to us at all. But what I'd hoped strategically is that we'd be starting these meetings with a rather than a $2.4 million cut. I'd hoped that we were going to be talking about what we were going to do to enhance our services and enhance our programs. That didn't work out. But we've done our best. As I told y'all last week, we met the objectives. We met our instructions, but there are the realities settled in, and that's what I'd like to review with you today.
Let me ask you a question first. Would you rather us answer the questions as we go from department to department, or do you want to wait till the end? Which
Yes,
do you-
ma'am. If it doesn't matter
No,
to
it's
me.
whichever one you prefer.
It's budget program area by program
Okay,
area
I
would be
think,
great.
so we'll forget, I don't, is that all right with everybody? We'll just do it program area, because I think it would have been
And if-
easier last time if,
Yes, ma'am.
did
And
that.
I
Thank
think,
you.
I think our book, if we have our references correct, and I think we do, if you can follow in this book, we can stick to that page, because I'm going to reference your tracking documents with appropriate numbers. If you'll see the amended changes, and then in just the second page here, there are, let me remind members of the committee, we have 3 program areas that are direct GDA proper. We have a number of attached agencies that you'll hear from later, and they show up on your tracking document under us, but the 3 that I will be discussing today are consumer protection, our departmental administration, and our marketing and promotion. Those are 3 program areas that you see here. The summaries are right in front of you. Madam Chair, I might hit a couple of the big numbers, and then if anybody has other detailed questions, we do that. The 776,290, you'll see that right there in the middle of the page. Those are 10-month costs for those positions. They are, you can read, they're food safety. There's many of our program areas that are on-the-ground inspectors, people who are out protecting you and I every day, that were impacted. Now, what we were able to do, we focused on first was how many open positions did we have? How many of those could we, reduce that way for the savings? We gained some ground with that in this figure, but then, as you'll see throughout the report, there were also people who had jobs in October that we have had to, who are no longer with us because we had to make those cuts that way. I made a, don't think I said this last week, but I love saying it to you today. We made a commitment to our employees, first and foremost, that we did not want to go through another season of furloughs. The uncertainty to our employee base, I didn't think that was fair, and I was committed to do this. So let's look at our existing open positions, try to gather some savings there, and then look at priority cuts that would actually impact people. Now, you'll see down at the bottom in just a moment, too, we took some of our marketing money that was real cash, not tied to people, but we also consumed it or recommended that cut simply because it would avoid costing anyone else their job. So we went into this protecting our employees' jobs to the best we could and avoiding furloughs, because I just don't want to go through a season like that. That was before I got here, and I just want to do everything we can possible to provide certainty to our employees. But you'll see those who they're fuel and measures, a lab analyst, ag compliance specialists that are out there in the various disciplines that we have, and as well as food safety. The figure that you see under consumer protection, that is 500,000. Gary, why are you asking a question about money that was put in the budget? We didn't ask for it. Now that's still a good thing, and I'm grateful for anything like that. But that's for the purchase of vehicles. One of the challenges that we have were the projected savings and costs of how that would roll over to 21. And I said to you last week, we thought some of that was overstated. And the issue is that I don't think we've taken a real consideration. We've not been able to process the data yet as to if you take someone off of mileage and put them in a vehicle, you still have fuel and maintenance for the vehicle itself. And so I think we need to work on our net savings some, and hopefully as we proceed forward, we'll be able to ascertain from everyone that's been working on this, maybe it's a clearer understanding. But that 500,000 is there. Madam Chair, that's consumer protection. Does anyone have a question on it?
I have a question about the vehicles. Are y'all on a program where you rotate and get so many vehicles a year? Some of the agencies did that.
Yes, ma'am.
So you,
typically, you've been good to us from a standpoint of 30. I'd say that number would be 30. I think this figure represents 32 vehicles. That's a normal. We've been fortunate in that area, yes, ma'am. And it sometimes they're 175. We're still running vehicles that have over 200,000 miles, I believe.
okay. Representative Wrigley.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Whenever you first started, you said that you had employees that are not in October that are not there now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because they moved on to something else, or was that some positions y'all eliminated?
No, we had to eliminate them.
Okay. Whenever the governor first started this, wasn't there a clause in there that he wasn't going to eliminate any positions, or am I dreaming?
I didn't have any instruction of that.
Okay.
I just had to manage what's under my responsibility.
Okay. All right. I was just trying to figure out. I thought that's what I read, but maybe I read it wrong. Thank you.
One other question about these vacant positions. Weren't some of these food safety people vacant because you couldn't find anybody to work?
Yes, ma'am. And that's largely what all of these vacancies represent. Is still which gets into a bigger strategic discussion of finding a college graduate in that discipline or something related with a starting salary of $31,000 a year. And many of us on this committee, or some of us on this committee, worked together about 7 years ago. And we were able to get a good shot in the arm then to get that up from 28,000. So we've been locked in here now for about 6 or 7 budget cycles at a $31,000 starting salary. And in this environment, which we're all thankful for this economy, that's a very difficult number. So some of those we just simply have not been able to find a qualified person to go to work for what we're willing to pay them. We have had a pretty interesting set of rotations, that's a positive word this year, as opposed to revolving door of our employees. We've seen, I can't quantify it, Madam Chair, but I just know several of the individual situations in the back of my head where we have new employee orientation, and it just seems like folks are going to work out. And then, we've had a number of employees we've had to terminate this year within 3 months, simply because of either character issue or whatever else that's competing in this market. That they made it through the first qualifying round, and we're glad to have them. But then trying to get them to show up to work, or perform the work, or perform at the level that we need with the character that we need, we've had seemed like an extra dose of that this year as a challenge. The only way we're going to do that is to be able to compete.
Representative Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Commissioner, thank you for coming today. Always
sir.
good to see you. The folks for the positions that have been eliminated, all right, I mean, the real people terminated, how many folks were terminated? I have two questions for you. That's the first
Okay.
one.
A
How many-
couple that's under 10, there were a couple in HR, a couple of permanent positions there. We have as many of y'all know, we had a number of part-time folks that we got in to regulate the gate program. We've eliminated those folks. They were part-time, 30-hour-a-week folks, but still critical to mission, critical to defending and auditing within the gate program with our responsibilities along with revenue. Then we had about, I don't recall the total number, but we've eliminated a call center, which is critical to all of our incoming customer service, but that was under contract and we eliminated that. So there's a number of those folks that were here in, October 1 that are not here today.
Okay, so the state employees that have been eliminated.
Yeah.
Were we able to move them to other positions within the state? Were they transferred to other positions or completely cut?
I don't know where they are. I mean, I was not able to. It's just a matter of you have numbers you have to meet, and you have. It's unfortunate that when you look at the priorities of the numbers that you have to meet, and that's a heartbreaking thing. No one likes to know that their job maybe is not as high priority as other ones, but that was a management decision we had to make.
So do you see this action much like ripping the Band-Aid off? You did it, you're done with it, now you can move on?
I don't know about that analogy. I'd say we're given instructions and we follow them to the best of our ability, and that's what we've done. What I've tried to do throughout this process is just to let you know what's going to happen as a result of that, so that you can make the decisions. And then perhaps it's an open discussion, it's an open process. My job will always be, as long as you let me do this job, is to make sure that we have the best Department of Agriculture in America. I shall not I'll never apologize for that. And to do that, we have to put the best team and we have to have the best bench available for the game every day, because the public expects us to win every day. They don't even like for us to play in a close game. There's no such thing as a close game when it comes to food safety or animal protection. Are we being censored? No. And so we're going to we want to play in the game every day to win. And I will always be a strong advocate for allowing me, let's invest in people. And we're a growing state. There are more QTs than there were, my experience now is in year 10. So there are more QTs than there were 10 years ago. There are more Krogers and Publix and Whole Foods than there were 10 years ago. There are more Georgians there were 10 years ago. And we have a job to do. I want to be sure we have the most team, and I want to work the best team, and I want to work with y'all so we'll all be proud of it.
And one thing you forgot to mention, I know in rural areas, there are more general dollars coming up that are selling foods than ever have before. You mentioned Publix.
Yes, ma'am.
But General Dollar now is selling food.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes.
there are a lot of them coming up everywhere in rural Georgia.
They really are. And so Dollar Generals are.
Dollar General.
Dollar General is
they
a
They call it
great
General
company.
Dollar,
They're serving
Dollar
a lot of.
Dollar General.
But see, when think about those Dollar Generals and anything similar, those are added to our existing portfolio. And just think about how many of those there are, and because if they have food, we're there. They don't open with our food safety inspectors. They certainly don't stay open.
Could you
unless they
give
do
us
correct.
the number of stores and things that have been added to your
Yes, ma'am.
payroll?
We'll provide that for you.
Provide that with a number that have been increased
Be-
on. I
be
know
happy
between
to.
my house and Valdosta, and it's like 24 miles, and there's like 4 new ones that have just come on. and I can't even get the name right, and I go there all the time. Thank you.
You're exactly right. And then I want to say this is probably a good place to make this point, Madam Chair, because it's we started a project with Georgia Federal State Inspection Service, which is a group that inspects. They're not state, they're not federal, but they do some jobs for us. They inspect all peanuts. They inspect a good bit of the vegetables, and they're not state employees or federal employees. But you know what? We've been inspecting peanuts. Literally, we inspect peanuts the same way today that we did 50 years ago. And so can technology be developed to address those problems? Yes, we've been in a 9-year progression with Georgia Tech, with UGA, with others, trying to find that next level. What's that technological leap that could take place so that the paradigm changes and we do our business differently? So my point is, I want y'all to know we think that way. There's some of these things, though, that right now only people can do them. And we need speed of communication. When I started, there were flip phones. There were not even smartphones so that you could take a picture of an inspection. We've made some good little steps along the way, but we've got to invest in our people.
Thank you. Gillian, Representative Gillian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, you alluded, first of all, Commissioner, thank you for the hard work that the Department of Agriculture does for our state. And we see the results. Just this holiday season with my organization, Feed the Hungry, we had 40,000 pounds of Purdue chicken. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a lot of chicken. But you said something earlier this week about inspection and the need to have the funding for the inspection. The #1 industry in Georgia. I want to commend you because this is hard to go through the bolts and the nuts and still be able to function. We got to have inspection for the #1 industry in Georgia. So is that still on the table, that I think 900,000 or so?
900, I'm sorry, Representative. 900,000.
You mentioned, I think, in appropriations, a couple of parables about some additional funding for this year and next year, I guess.
Okay, well, not sure how that relates to food safety. Yeah, I would love for us to have a conversation. We're going to make a proposal to you to restore funding for food safety. I think that's very important. Before we finish today, I'll put a bow on our hemp discussion too, which I know you have a lot of interest in, and show you what that price tag is as well. But it's I want us to be smarter. I want us to move faster. I want us to employ technology. When we say we want to do that too, that has a price tag on it as well. But it's just important that we have, we do need to provide certainty and security in the marketplace. And you do that through the food safety professionals on our team. That's just as important for public health, just as important for a producer and a farm family as it is for public health.
Thank you for your service.
Madam Chair, you want to go to the second one? Real quickly? It's pretty simple. I don't know that there'll be, if there are questions, certainly take them. But departmental administration, we had cuts there. But we also eliminated positions. These were open. The IT administrative position was open. That temporary, Representative Marsh, that's the HR consultant. That was a permanent position. That was, even though it was a consultant, is the way that contract worked. That was a permanent employee. But that, you see the total there. Are there any questions on administration? Marketing and promotion. You will see the position eliminations there at 440,578. I think it's the one thing to point out here, Madam Chair, members, is that this is a cut from the investment you made in us 1.5 years ago. The House Rural Development Council and the efforts of the legislature, and we wanted to start investing in rural Georgia, so we were able to get a little over $1 million to advance the brand, to do domestic marketing and international marketing, and yet when you look at the 440,000 category and then the 522,000 category, we've had to go back and cut a couple of those openings. There's a figure there on the third line, third section down, Madam Chair, that says eliminate Georgia Grown advertising. That's $160,000. I'd like for you to that plus the website information that you see there, or that cut. Would you please first flip over two pages. These are projects that have already been underway under the current budget that will have to be eliminated this spring, though we've already paid for a good bit of it, paid for its development. It's just the deploying what we had planned for the spring is not going to be possible. That's where part of that 160 would help pay for it. We have included also on the domestic marketing program these cuts both in the 20 and the 21. I've said strategic several times today, but I want you to know that we do think strategically, is that you don't just decide to go to a domestic trade show. We have, if you'll see here, we have domestic trade shows that are being planned on into next year, but we have to, in order to secure the space for Georgia companies, we have to do that now. And we have to have the assurance that our program's going to be available. And so some of this will be curtailed. It will suffer. I will point several testimonials. I hope you'll take time to read those. It matters. This program matters to people, and there are over 1,000 license holders for the brand now, and these are the folks that are on taking advantage of these opportunities through our marketing. And lastly, Madam Chair, the pretty pictures. I'm better with pictures. Here's an example. These are not mock-ups. This is the body of the spring campaign for 2020. The creativity with our team is, I will put them up against anyone. When we say we're nature's favorite state, yeah, we own that brand too. That's because we are. This is a good team. But if you flip over, and I'm not sure, I haven't even shared these with Robert Dickey yet. I hope he'll be proud. But that's the Georgia Grown Peach promotion. If you'll flip over one more, these are the materials that we're already working with Publix on, but they won't be there, and that's part of our challenge. There's one last purchase order that. And this may, I don't want to be picky, and I'm not, but just talk, it's a process issue. This is a purchase order. Do you see the number up here at 100,765? Okay, that was an additional cut that we didn't know anything about, which that's fine. There's a budget process. I understand all that, but that was tacked on to our proposal. But that represents a PO that's already committed for. We're already committed. We're in the middle of a total redesign and web presence and marketing portal that we've had underway for months. This PO's already processed, yet it shows up as a cut in the budget. And that's unfortunate. We can work through that, but it's just it's the same $765. It shows up in the budget document. And so I just, I hope we're gonna, and I believe we will. Everybody wants Georgia to do good, and we're gonna be a part of, we're gonna be a part of every constructive conversation. But I tell you, our marketing program is a good one, and I think we ought to invest in it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These purchase orders, you said we'll work through it. What do you, tell me what you, when you say we'll work through it, does that mean you're gonna go ahead and get it, or?
It's already committed.
Okay, that's what
I don't,
But you
I
said-
suppose we could go back on the contract.
No, you're not gonna do, that's not what you said you was gonna do. You said you're gonna work through it, right?
Yes, sir. I hope we can find a solution together in the coming weeks.
On these pages with all these pretty pictures that me and you both like to look at better than reading,
Yes, sir.
what does it take to get that, you've already committed to that,
Mm-hmm.
planned it, put all the marketing and research, and what will that cost to?
What let me do this, because that's coming out of that 160 package that's been cut. But I can probably, what we will do, Representative, is itemize that out by retail institutions that we're working for and show you what those commitments are. Would that be helpful?
That'd be fine, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this section? Any other questions on this section? All right, I guess that's it.
There's one more, Madam Chair, if I
Okay.
could, because
All right.
this is the last page.
All right, thank you.
You had asked us to outline, and we discussed last week, we are committed, the state law is present, we're going to have an industrial hemp program in the state of Georgia. There are costs associated with doing that. What I've presented to you is what is a bare bones of what an annual cost would be for the state's responsibility for the regulatory program to be run through the Department of Agriculture. If we just quickly digress 90 seconds from a standpoint of where we are with that program. We turned our plan in July the 8th. The United States Department of Agriculture reviewed it all summer, all fall, reported back their own regulations at the latter part of November. Then the latter part of, we spent latter part of November and December matching what our regulations need to be with the feds so that we could resubmit our program. We did so a couple of weeks ago. It is sitting on the edge of being ready to approve. The remaining part of that document is what we talked about last week, certification of authorization of appropriations to run the regulatory program. The price tag on that for 2020 amended budget is $200,000. So without that, I highly doubt that USDA will approve our program. We will advance forward. I believe we can meet a March 1st deadline to have processors' licenses available, and that process begin March 1st. That's surely our goal. That'll let some businesses get started this year. If y'all change the state law, which many are talking about, to allow for other state product to come in, then there's a flow of product that would be available. I know there've been some talk with some folks in Tennessee to be able to process it here. So your neighbors. So we're going to be ready. It's not that we're not going to be open for business. We'll be open for business with the processors. And I know there's talk about maybe adjusting those fees, and maybe that raises enough money to run the program, which is actually something we suggested about 18 months ago to make this thing a net. But it didn't turn out that way in the legislature, and in the legislation last year, and it has not manifested itself in the budget yet. So I hope we're going to be able to work with you on that as well.
That's me.
Representative Tarr.
I was already lit up. You said adjust the fees to help pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the fees would go up to make help pay for it?
Yeah, I know there's some discussion in the folks that want to introduce the legislation is to raise the processor fee.
Okay, but,
It's 25,000 in the legislation you passed last year, and I've heard multiples of that.
But after comparing surrounding areas
Mhm.
to Georgia, I would be shocked if anybody got into this business in Georgia at the cost until it's changed.
And yes, sir, I've heard that argument since day one too, and I'm not,
That was us, that wasn't
Yeah.
you.
yeah, I'm hoping, what I've also heard, as far as, I've heard a lot of people come through my office that say it's not nearly high enough, and
Well, and this is not time to talk about it. Compared to other states, it's way too high. And
Yeah.
we're getting it to a processor. It's impossible for anybody to get in this business in Georgia. That's terminology. That won't cost you anything.
Madam Chair, I thank y'all, and let me close with this. There's one other, I think you'll find it, I think it's actually in the, and we'll talk about 21 later, but one of the thick portions of the back of this book addresses the $1,000 raise. And we have roughly 525 employees. This decision will impact 337. 3/5 of our employees make less than $40,000 a year. So that's a welcomed addition. But I hope we can speak to the bigger strategic issue, is that what are we going to do for the future of the state? Because it won't be done one little bite at a time. And I'm going to continue to advocate for our agency, because we are the #1 industry in the state of Georgia. We're protecting every consumer, every citizen every day. And I know every one of you believe that. Every one of you been so kind to me since doing this job, and I want to continue to work with all your colleagues too. But somewhere down the road, I hope we're all going to buckle up, and we've got to do something for the next generation. And I believe that's investing in an agency that's a doggone good one. And I thank you.
You're talking about 3/5 of that 535 would need $1,000 raise, that's fixing on 40.
Yes, sir.
How many employees did you say you had?
530.
It's 525.
I mean, that made less than a
337.
337. Now that's going to have not only when you think about it, just $1,000 a month, but you've got to put in for more retirement. You've got to put in for
Well, we
year.
believe the numbers. We're still trying to understand.
not a month. It's a year.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. I thought it would make $1,000. Okay.
Madam Chair, and this is, once again, this I don't want this to sound picky, but it is a reality thing. The number of, as we read it, the number that is in the budget does not match totally what the total cost of that. Now, it's only $18,000 short. So really, those employees will not get a $1,000 raise. They can get a $970 raise. And I know that's close, but if we're gonna give them $1,000, then we need to give them $1,000.
Yeah. If we say we're going to give them $1,000,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
need to give
I'm
them
not going to
1,000.
tell an employee he's getting 1,000 and he shows up 970. I will not do that. I mean, I'll tell them up front it's 970. But
Well, do you have some people that when you give them $1,000 a year, they're going to be close to what their inspector, I mean, the person over them is?
yes, ma'am. That one of our big issues, which the celebration that we had 6-7 years ago when we raised starting salaries,
Uh-huh.
we were never able to come back with a strong second and third phase of that, which really resulted in great compression for us.
Yeah.
Enormous compression in the middle management area. And that's just that will only be solved with a strategic And we've presented plan after plan, and we'll continue to do that, of how to accomplish that. But there is a price tag to it. That's a couple of $3 million just to get started. But if we're going to plan for the future, we can't kick it down the road. And there are many, in a $28 billion budget, there are competing resources, and I've told all of you, many of you, I've never, I make management decisions every day, but I've never sat in front of a microphone with a red and green button. I've never done that. I've known a bunch of y'all that do, but and so sometimes so there's a lot of competition for your time and for your, but I love competition, and I will compete for your heart and for your vote.
Thank you, and thank you for the job you're doing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dr. Savala with the poultry lab.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me here today. I guess my name is Dr. Louise DeFore Zavala. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Poultry Lab Network. I guess if I'm a line item under Commissioner Black, that means I need to have the best poultry lab in America. I'm working on it. No kidding. I have a very short report for you. I guess my line item is 1351 on your paperwork. Ours is a private-public partnership with you guys, and has been for years and years, and we're extremely thankful for the support of the GDA and the state of Georgia to support our laboratory efforts. Our total cut was $128,000. Part of that was really taken from our one-time appropriation for an emergency building. So our cut to our regular appropriation was $116,000, and what we're doing with this cut is splitting it between pay raises and equipment. As far as impact, my concern with that cut is competitiveness, in the sense that in Gainesville, we compete for salaries with the medical community. So if a medical technician has a choice to go work at the poultry lab or at the Northeast Georgia Medical Center, and they make 50% more there, that's where they'll go. So we've been able over the years to compete with them, but every time I have a cut, that's what has to cut, and I'm always concerned that I'm going to lose some of those trained employees. That's my potential impact. Other than that, there is a cut to our one-time appropriations. I'm going to let Mr. Groves, my facilities director, explain to you how that's going to affect that building, and he's also going to answer any of your question on the current repair of the BSL-3 lab. John?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For our one-time appropriation, we'll be cutting $12,000 out of the budget, and that will go towards asphalt, concrete, and a security camera system that would have been integrated into the building. Shouldn't really impact us too heavily. It would be my plan later on to eventually install the concrete, the asphalt, and the security system for the Georgia Department of Agriculture depopulation building. I don't know if
Depopulation, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
Depopulation is where we currently will house all of the equipment that we go out into a farm and euthanize diseased birds. So we will physically show up on a site and use a CO2-based foam to euthanize massive amount of birds.
Well, okay, this doesn't have anything to do with the building your facilities had. With the new building that you built.
Yes, ma'am, it does. We are currently building that building.
So in the contract, you didn't call
with
for any
BSL-3? Are we talking about BSL-3?
I'm talking about the one that didn't work. We had to move out of.
Oh no, ma'am. We're talking about the BSL-3 project, GDA 046, which is being managed by GSFIC right now.
You're going to have to speak English.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a paper here that I believe Morgan passed out to you guys here. We currently started construction January 6th. We had about 1 year and 3 months of investigation, very, very thorough investigation. We have over 8 specialized engineers and architects, some of them employed from GSFIC, who have pinpointed some key issues that need to be addressed. Currently in its state, all 5 issues that I spoke to you guys a year ago in the BSL-3, the air balance and flow, moisture, vibration, and redundancy in the robotics room. In its current state, they are all being addressed. As long as we don't have any value engineering, I know I spoke to you guys about that, VE value engineering, we should be in good shape once the project is completed. And we're looking for a materials completion date sometime in June and a full retro commissioning of the facility, seasonal retro commissioning, hopefully done by year end, which it has to take that long because we need a full season, so.
I want to ask you something.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you try to get any money back from the contractor that built this?
That is out of my ballpark. That's out of my league. I'm not sure.
Did you ask for it? Did you?
No, ma'am. That would be, you would need to speak to GSFIC about that.
I believe they were out of business. When we went out and did the inspection last year.
Yeah.
The original.
Use the mic.
I believe that the original contractor was out of business. It was gone, or was it the architect?
It was
The architect was gone.
engineering.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So, okay. I would hate to think that you couldn't put a security camera in. I mean, that's just, maybe you can go to Best Buy and buy one, okay?
I think that's the plan.
Or General Dollar.
A General Dollar one. I mean, you know, with what we've had happen, you know, when you're talking about diseased birds and everything,
Sure.
you do need a security camera.
Sure.
I urge you to try to find some money for that.
No problem.
Representative Morris.
I believe if I remember our conversation from last year, there's only been 1 or 2 times that you've ever had to go in and completely eliminate a house, right? Like in the history? Or,
No, sir. That's, I would say it's on average about twice a year where we physically have to go in and euthanize, preemptively euthanize diseased birds. I would say about twice a year, but it's in the grand scheme, it is part of our AI response as well in case Georgia came down with avian influenza. So it would be our rapid mobilization of depopulation equipment.
Okay, I'm sorry, then I got it wrong before. I thought there was
Yes,
only
sir.
2 times, but it's about twice a year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Now, when is the completion date on this? What date do you think you'll be completed with all of this?
You know, we have they're projecting June. If I had to guess, I would say September. You know, with rain and delays and these kind of
Yeah,
things.
okay.
I'm hoping for September.
All right. Well, just keep us up on it. We don't need any surprises like
Yes,
we had
ma'am.
before.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know who was looking after it, but it's not acceptable. It's too late now, but if it had been my house, y'all would have heard from me.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm sorry we didn't go after the contractor or somebody on it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Soil and water.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to come and discuss budget with you all once again. The document that I provided Ms. Hall about our budget discusses both little budget for this year and FY21, but I'll stick to the little budget for
Okay.
purposes of today. You can find us under the Department of Ag, in section 13.72 and 13.73. 13.72 shows $37,474 deducted for contractual services. That's a combination of two things. One would be a $30,000 payment to the Department of Ag to handle some financial filings and reportings. Some of you might remember in 2015, House Bill 397 put soil and water administratively attached to the Department of Ag. 2018, we went under the same business unit number as the Department of Ag. So they assumed some filing and reporting responsibilities. The first year that happened, we entered this agreement. When budget cuts were announced, we had the conversation with Ag's financial team and Ag Commissioner, and they agreed to continue to do the work that they are doing for us without that payment. So we appreciate that. The $7,474 that makes up that balance in contractual services is a 4% cut to the state funds that our soil and water conservation districts get. That will not affect the services that our agency offers the districts. It will affect the district's ability to promote and educate on conservation in their local areas. That's money that comes to us. They elect how to spend it on the local level, and then we send it on down to them.
If I remember correctly, could you tell me how much we give each soil and water district?
Sure. So total, they receive, amongst all 40 of them, almost $187,000.
I mean, how much does each district receive?
So we have a formula. It's not a set amount for each district. 5 or 6 years ago, the districts received an increase in their funding, and at that time, previous board members, along with the supervisors, worked on an agreeable formula where 35% of that goes to each district. A base of 35% is split evenly among the districts, and then the remaining 65% is based off the number of counties within the district. We have multiple counties or multiple districts that just serve one county, and then there's several districts, especially in the southern part of the state, that have multiple counties. So they determined that would be a reasonable amount because the bigger districts have more counties to reach.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Moving on to 13.7.3, shows a deduction of $62,717 for a vacant position. This position became vacant late July. It was an IT specialist position. Being a small agency of 20-some people, when we found out the gentleman was leaving, we had plans to roll his salary into a more technical, out-in-the-field position where it was more needed. We have an IT director, didn't feel like we could utilize those funds better out in the field. Budget cuts were announced, and before we filled that position, so we put the IT specialist as part of our cuts. And Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take any more questions, but that.
Well, I think we do have some questions.
Sure.
I think, do you remember several years ago, we talked about local government sending things over to soil and water for y'all to read and approve their not the grant, their programs when they go to expand a road or,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
not even sure what you call
Are
it.
you the erosion and sediment control plans?
Yes,
Yes,
uh-huh.
ma'am.
And I think it was Representative Andy Welch was wanting his local people because it took so long.
Sure.
And I think Representative Taxley wants to address you about some of these things that are happening in
Absolutely.
that department. Representative Taxley.
Thank you, Chairman Houston. Excuse me. I've heard from a few constituents in my district, and they're just pointing out a problem that when the county reviewed the plans, they could get that done within 12 days. These are developers, and they were good to go. Now the plans have to be submitted, as you know, to Athens. And in Athens, they have up to 45 days to review the plan. most of the time, I'm told, the engineers find, some issue that needs to be addressed by the developers, and they send it back. The problem is that their answer or correction to the comments by the engineers, when it's sent back, it goes to the bottom of the pile, and another 45 days rolls around. So that's a 90-day total delay. And we're trying to be a state that, is easy to do business with, and this is definitely becoming a problem, not just in my district, but throughout the state.
Sure, I understand, and I'll first address the 90-day turnaround. We attempted, when all the plans had to be shifted to our headquarters office in Athens, to offer a quicker turnaround for the plans that were resubmitted to be bumped up to the front of the line. After a little bit of doing that, unfortunately, we found some bad actors kind of ruined that for everybody else, where we would have some that would do the bare minimum, knowing that it wouldn't pass, and depend on our staff to tell them what they needed to draw up the plan for them, which was causing more work on our staff to go through a plan that really shouldn't have been submitted in the first place. So unfortunately, we've had to go back to the practice where they just get back in the end of the line when they're submitted. We are definitely aware of the situation. It's probably the most constant conversation that we have in our office and across the street with the governor's office about the situation we're in. I was sitting there and I heard Georgia's the best state to do business in 7 years running, and Chairman Houston talking about Dollar Generals, and we have probably 4 or 5 plans from you Dollar Generals come through our office a month. We're small, but I understand the impact that we have. But to increase our productivity without majorly increasing our budget by adding staff, we have very close, hopefully within the month, roll out a plan that will allow the engineer to fill out a lot of this information that we're currently having to track down when the plan comes. The barcode system, like a FedEx label, we'll be able to scan it and it's uploaded in our system.
Has any thought been given to maybe giving some of that back to the local county governments that are, somewhat of expertise in this field, and it could be corrected immediately? I mean, I don't understand why we're going to, or how we can continue to harm the folks that are doing it right versus the bad actors.
Sure.
I don't think everybody should pay for the bad actors.
Yes, ma'am. And a local issuing authority, which is what EPD certifies a municipality to look after their own erosion and sediment control, they have the option of doing that in-house at that local level. Currently, there's roughly 360 LIAs throughout the state, and about 60 of those have status where they could review them in-house and keep them there at that local level. We're also doing some things, working with the Attorney General's office and those LIAs to see what we could do to intrigue more LIAs to do it at a local level, reducing our number.
And what is the LIA?
It's a local issuing authority.
Local issue.
And
could we see a list of those?
Sure.
Can you also give her the qualifications of what you have to be an LIA?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman House.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please do. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strickland.
Ms. Strickland. Thank you so much
Yes,
for
ma'am.
coming before us today, and thank you for this thing. I'm sure we're going to enjoy looking at it.
All right, thank you so much, and good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name again is Frank Poe. I serve as the Executive Director for the Georgia World Congress Center Authority. I want to draw your attention within the packet to really two documents that you'll see in here that I'll reference as I go through my remarks today. The first one will look something like into this, which is a montage of different project pieces that I want to walk you through. And then the second would be the presentation material that would have a cover like this, and I'll go into that second in my remarks today. So we've had a number of activities, capital projects across the campus over the last few years. And I want to point out to you there's 6 of them, some in process, some completed, just to give you a quick overview of what we've done and how we've stewarded the funds that the General Assembly has appropriated to us. First and foremost, with Centennial Olympic Park, that project has been completed. Again, just as a reminder, $4 million in state funds leveraged over $22 million in private sector funds in support of that project, which was a significant redo of the park itself, inclusive of acquiring the Metro Chamber building, demolishing it, and increasing green space within the park itself. So it continues to serve as a significant event center for us, our front door, if you will, to the visitors that come to the state, and really a nice enhancement to the neighborhood. As you move across the page, looking at the GWCC flooring project, that was $4 million. The Congress Center put in an additional $2 million into that, and that was really to replace carpet and add terrazzo flooring. So we're pleased and honored to say that that project has been completed. Georgia Carpet, Shaw was our partner in that to ensure that we got the best product for this facility. Moving down, the proposed hotel. If you recall, we've had our bonding capacity established at $500 million. We are at the cusp of launching that project. We are wrapping up our qualified management agreements with Hilton, who will be our operator for our new brand called Signia. And that project should fall into place with grand opening and groundbreaking right after the Final Four this year. As I said, we're wrapping up the qualified management agreements, the guaranteed maximum price agreements with Skanska, who serves as our contractor. And then we met with Standard & Poor's to help rate the bonds that would be issued, because these will be non-recourse revenue bonds supported only by the revenues, excess revenues off the hotel itself. So this is not a general obligation of the state, nor does it carry the good faith and credit of the state of Georgia as a backstop to those bonds. Moving across the page at midpoint, the Andrew Young International Boulevard project is about to be launched. Through your support, $37 million over 2 years came in to really reshape the front entry into the Congress Center, add a transportation depot that would be a replacement facility for shuttle buses, for shared ride, cabs, etc. So we've got 2 separate contractors that we're coordinating with, but we expect to see that project launched towards the end of this calendar year. BC Exhibit Hall expansion. This is the largest and most recent expansion to the facility, and you may recall when we made the request of $55 million, we talked to you about what the market impact of that could be for the facility. I'm honored to say that when we looked at this initially, we recognized 13 conventions that would move into the state that either were expanding existing business or new to the state. Proud to say that number is up over 20. The economic impact associated with that when we started this project was around $500 million. It's now up over $600 million in economic impact, with groups that have confirmed to the state on the basis of that exhibit hall connection piece that binds 2 of our major halls into one. And then I'll talk to you in just a moment about what we're seeking for your consideration in this coming year on capital projects. But if you'll turn with me to this packet, and I'll be quick as I march through it. But just to give you a little bit of reflection on our fiscal year 19, we hosted over 580 events on our campus with over 4 million visitors to the state of Georgia. Just in sales tax alone to the state, $109 million in sales tax was generated off those events this past year. We sustained 19,000 jobs that are allied to this industry with an overall economic impact generated of $1.9 billion. And these numbers don't come just from us. We use the state's economists to validate the information relative to the events. So these are the calculations associated with that. If you turn to the next page, it would be page 3 in your packet. Over the course of the life of the history of the authority, the state has invested $805 million in bonds. Just again in sales tax generated over the course of those bonds, $1.632 billion. So you see your return off that investment in terms of how we calculate that at over $800 million back to the state over the course of the life of these bonds in the facility. In turning to for your consideration, we've got 2 projects that we are in dire need of advancing. One deals with the roof of the building, and this is only one phase. It's a multiple phase approach. We've got roofs that are in excess of 40 years old that are original to the building. And in Building B, the 2 that we're most focused in on for your consideration this coming year is $9 million in roofing replacement on Buildings B and A, which represent the more currently critical areas that have water saturation in the membrane. We're using patching work currently to keep the water from flowing down onto the exhibit booths that would be below. So this would allow us to go in and deal with those issues currently, but there are other roofs that are going to need replacement as well as we go forward. But these would represent the most critical pieces to the facility itself. The second item for consideration is a passenger elevator added to Building B. Building B really serves as sort of the hub of our operation for all conventions and activities that use the complex. And with the growth of our business, we've found that our vertical transportation movement has gotten stifled. We get bottlenecked in this particular area. So adding an additional passenger elevator at $3 million, we've made some operational changes to how we use the escalators in that facility. But this is also a code issue as well, so one that we need to address for a lot of different reasons in terms of ADA and just passenger safety in and out of the complex. I will say that we received a planning number early on last year as you were going into the budget cycle. The $12 million was the planning number that we had received, but it was not in the governor's capital budget for this coming year. But we can say with a great deal of confidence that their office is very supportive of this request that is before you. Just one quick note on the hotel, because I skipped over the scope of the project. It's 975 rooms, 70,000 square feet of meeting space contained within. We will hit groundbreaking after the final 4 and see this project completed in the 4th quarter of 2022. We've already got on the books, before any marketing, any sales by Hilton at all, just what our staff has done. We have over $25 million of booked business ready to go into the hotel once we announce the official groundbreaking date. So with that, I'll pause and be responsive to any questions that you may have.
Representative Morris.
15, thanks. Can you tell us about this $3 million elevator? That sounds like a lot of elevator.
It's a passenger elevator that actually flows through multiple levels of the complex. So from the 4th level down all the way to the exhibit hall level. So it's basically building in a shaft inside some existing space. So there's a requirement of demolition, new electrical, and all the equipment that goes with the elevator operation. So it's a large. I agree, it's a large number, but it is a number that, based on the location, to get the best utilization for the customers, that's the cost estimate that we're getting for it.
How many elevator shafts are we talking about?
We're talking about one.
Cars, I guess.
Yeah, that's what one car, but it'll be a fairly sizable passenger. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? I don't think we have any questions. We just have to look for some money.
I understand. Thank you very
But
much for your attention. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right.
Wait, thank you. And I think you could see, if anybody had gone to the eggs and issues, you could see the problems you had with moving people around. Maybe it's just that the legislature's moved slow or something. But thank you. The next we have Department of Community Affairs.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon.
Members of the committee. I'm Christopher Nunn. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. I'll try to be not speak as fast and not speak as long as I did last week in our earlier committee hearing. Madam Chair, is your intent to just focus on the amended budget today? Okay. Great. I have both with me, and there are several of our recommendations that actually tie from one to the other, and I may just mention that, and then we can come back and sweep up at a later point in time. So I'm just going to work from your tracking sheet.
Well, we had gotten instructions today to go just on the amended budget.
Perfect. That works. That means you don't have to put up with me for as long.
Good.
Okay.
I've been with you a lot today.
So I'll just work from the tracking sheet, and the first line item that I'd speak to is under 16.2, the coordinated planning. These two recommendations both tie to our recommended cuts, and the first 16.2.1 deals with a reduction in funds for the contractual services for the regional commissions. So we at DCA contract with the state's 12 regional commissions to provide or to assist local governments with the planning responsibilities that were enacted in the 1989 Planning Act. And they're a vital partner to us. Here you will note that we are recommending a reduction of $140,186 to the total regional commission contract. So that would flow out to each of the 12 regional commissions in the form of a reduction of somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 each in a formulaic manner. Related to that and to this bold section of coordinated planning, 16.2.2 has to do with the regional commission performance audits, which were implemented a number of years ago, and which we've gotten lots of very beneficial and good information from. In no way, shape, or form is this taking aim at the audits. It's simply looking at the funding for those audits. So what happens today as a function of those of the money that you appropriate to us for the regional commissions, an amount of that, $90,000, we pay to the Department of Audits. And in this budget environment, the thought that we would be funding another state agency through this line item in the budget we're recommending the elimination of that $90,000. That's simply a funding piece. Does that make any questions? Or do you want me to just keep going through and then y'all entertain questions at the end?
Whichever you prefer.
I'll just keep going and you just stop me when you want me to stop.
Okay. Now, you're not recommending stopping those audits, you're just not recommending paying for it.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything in the statute requiring us to do those audits, or we just realized we really needed it, really helped?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I'll have to go back with our planning staff to confirm. I believe that those are included in statute.
I think so,
It's just
too.
not the funding piece is what flows through the budget. So, but we'll get back to you and confirm
All right,
that.
because we really do need to continue it. But do y'all pay other audits? If you have audited on other things, you have to pay the auditing department to do it?
We don't pay for any other performance audits. I can't speak to other state agencies, but we don't pay for any other performance audits or the zero-based budgeting process or things of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Moving along under 16.3, the departmental administration, the first one is simply an enterprise adjustment, and the second, 16.3.2, was included in the governor's veto non-binding language in following last year's session. So I will move to 16.3.3. Question?
I have a question. So we're looking at 16.3.2.
Yes,
which is the Georgia Commission for the Holocaust
that's correct.
Administration. So if I look at it, this looks like maybe a 5% cut this year, roughly another 5% if we look at next year in their budget.
And this gets into a complicated topic that is really included in the FY21 budget. This specific line item that deals with a $15,000 budget add last year for some administrative overhead, that was vetoed or included in the non-binding language that direction from the governor back in May. So this has nothing to do with cuts. What you will see later on, and I'll talk about it as an attached agency, the Commission on the Holocaust does have a 4% cut for this year in their budget, and then a 6% cut for next year. But this line item in our departmental administration was simply a budget item that was vetoed by the governor.
Okay, so we vote on the budget
Yes.
as House members.
Yes.
All right? And this is included in that budget,
Yes.
correctly?
Yes.
Explain to us how this is not a binding thing, because if
Yes,
we
line
vote
item
on it,
veto.
I would refer that to the governor's council.
all right?
I
So,
think
so
the
we,
governor has line item veto, correct?
okay. So we get up today and we remember 8 million people,
Yes, sir.
Well,
8 million people
Absolutely.
that were killed. And then we strike money from the budget for the Holocaust Commission today.
Well, I think that they have got something worked out. I've spoke with them today, and I think they've got something worked out.
Okay.
And I appreciate your pointing out the unveiling they did today, which is a fantastic new exhibit in the Capitol. So
Now, I've met a lot of people in my life, but I've never met 8 million of them. Okay, so thank you, though. I know you're
Yes,
doing
sir.
your job, but.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for doing your job, okay? Thank you.
yes, sir. I'm going to move on to 16.3.3, which this is a reduction in funds for the Georgia Advocacy Office, recognizing some duplication of services offered between GAO and the Office of Disability Services Ombudsman in the governor's office.
Explain the difference in the two agencies.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. And I first should point out that when we talk about duplication of services, that doesn't mean that you've got another Christopher Nunn and another agency doing the exact same thing that this Christopher Nunn does. But the similarities are as follows. So under the Governor's Office of Disability Services Ombudsman, their mission is to promote the safety, well-being, and rights of individuals with disabilities in Georgia. And they do this by working to resolve any issues concerning acts or omissions to act with disability services. The mission of the Georgia Advocacy Office, which I will note, this is a pass-through through our agency. So the GAO does not They do not report to me at DCA. They are not a part of our organization. There may be some members here today, but the GAO, from all of the conversations that we have had, and I meet with them annually, their mission is to initiate voluntary one-to-one relationships between persons with disabilities and a person from their community who has complementary qualities. Both of these entities are seeking to advocate on behalf of persons with disabilities. The methodology by which they do it is, in fact, different. The budget reduction here, just to highlight so that I know you're tracking along, represents 1/4 of full year funding. So that's a $56,225 reduction in the amended budget. And when I talk to you about the FY21 budget, we'll continue that discussion.
Well, and the other budget now that we've got, will it completely eliminate it?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Representative Gilliard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, I'm such a cheerleader of DCA, and I want to commend you for all of the great work that you all have done. The but part, this great conjunction on today, is that maybe there's great services from the Robinson, the office, but on the Georgia Advocacy Office in Savannah, we have the Citizens Advocacy.
Right.
They're changing lives one at a time.
Right.
Is there any way possible that we can find a way to streamline to put them back in? Because across the state, they do tremendous work. You said that they advocate one-on-one. I've seen their work for the last decade or so.
Right.
And when I heard about this, I was just wondering, you've got two different organizations or entities, but they both serve that population in different mannerisms of how they do it. But I've seen the work. Is there any way that we can look at something else and putting them back in?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the vote of confidence in DCA and the acknowledgement that this is a challenging budget exercise. I don't envy the position that you guys are in, having to make tough decisions. I believe that you don't have to talk to me about how you would put this in the budget or not. I'm here to present to you the governor's budget and what we believe makes the most sense with limited resources in a challenging budget year. So I appreciate that. I do have a meeting on my calendar next week with the folks from GAO just to have a further conversation with them. But this is our recommendation.
So it's about 50,000 or 200 some odd thousand.
So the 50,000 is 1/4 for this year, and the total. I won't do this much, but I'll jump forward to next year. $224,902 in the big budget.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to see if I could follow up with that. Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It sort of sounds like they have two completely, even though they serve the same people, they have completely different functions.
So there is enough duplication and overlap that it got our attention as we were looking at how do we prioritize the budget.
But it looks like one reports things when an ombudsman reports things when things that go wrong.
Right.
And that Georgia Advocates
is a bit more proactive.
Right.
To
keep things from going wrong.
Right.
Thank you, and thank you for pointing that out. Go on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, it's your meeting. You stop me when you want. 16.4.1, the under federal community and economic development programs. There was some confusion when I presented this last week. So this too is a funding measure. This has nothing to do with eliminating the Appalachian Regional Commission program, which is a very vital federal-state partnership. And it's a very important funding program. We get upwards of $4 million last year, more than that in some years from the ARC. The recommendation here is to eliminate the funds for the assessment, which is $130,000 in the budget. A little bit of background so you understand the recommendation. Every year, the 13 states that make up the Appalachian Regional Commission are assessed based on what it will cost to run the commission. Several years ago, I believe it was 2, maybe 3 years ago, the methodology for that assessment changed. And so our assessment increased significantly, and it was outside of an appropriation cycle. But given the similarities between the One Georgia program and the ARC program, both focused on economic development, both focused on rural communities, as well as the fact that ARC leverages lots of federal money, the decision was made that the balance, the delta in that assessment, the One Georgia Authority Board elected to fund that. So a portion of the One Georgia, subsequently the assessment has come down in its amount. I believe this year the assessment is approximately $150,000. 130 of that is covered out of the budget. The balance of that is currently covered out of the One Georgia Authority budget. The recommendation would be to present this to the One Georgia Authority Board, to provide them with some leverage for federal funds and to cover the difference. So the net $130,000 reduction in the budget under federal community and economic development. Under 16.6, item 1. You'll note that we have the provision of $60,000 to provide one-time funds to purchase 3 vehicles to help reduce mileage reimbursement. I know many of you know our regional representatives who are the eyes and ears and arms and legs of DCA out in communities. Not only are they providing technical assistance and assisting communities with accessing DCA resources, but they actually also help us to monitor our investments in these communities. Well, several of our employees have somewhat unique regions that they serve. They're elongated. They have lots of travel time between communities, and so we do have a couple, actually three of our regional reps that are covering more than 20,000 miles a year. That equates to more than $10,000 a year in mileage reimbursement. So the recommendation here is that we purchase vehicles for those individuals. Did you lose me? Okay.
Well, I'm with you, but if you purchase the vehicles, it looks to me like you'd still have the expenses of the gas and have to revert. And how do you justify that when you still have to be paying for the reimbursement on mileage?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, there are carrying costs with vehicles.
Yeah.
When we get to the FY21 budget, you'll notice the corresponding anticipated savings. So we've got these individuals that we would be able to no longer have to reimburse them for their mileage. There would be some carrying cost. You could do the math on what
you wouldn't reimburse them for mileage.
We wouldn't reimburse them for mileage if they're driving a state vehicle, but we would have to. They're driving 20,000 miles a year. $2.38 a gallon in gas. Somebody at OPB could help me with what we're actually having to pay for that. On the state fleet cards. But there is a carrying cost. You are correct. So we wouldn't be recovering all of that. We actually would anticipate just through synergies being able to. I'd have to look forward to the 21 budget. I believe we've reflected about $64,000 in savings. So we'd have to do some work to achieve those savings.
So now they're driving their own cars and you're reimbursing them.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
16.8.1, reduce funds for personal services to reflect 1 vacant position. We have 7 surveys that we conduct, statutory surveys that we conduct for the state. We have those are varying degrees of involved. Representative Tankersley, you've helped us with consolidating some of those and trying to improve our reporting capabilities. We're currently down 1 position. We propose eliminating that vacancy, and we're still working on how we would streamline the reporting process, and continue to deliver those 7 reports with 1 fewer or 1 less person. Moving on, under 16.9.1, under special housing initiatives, this is a reduction of $100,000 in funds for the statewide independent living council. The SILK program is another fantastic program that provides home access services to persons experiencing disability in the state. The home access program has served in earlier years 13 to 15 people a year with $100,000 in funds, which was their funding level in FY18. In FY19, that increased to $200,000, and I believe last year they were able to serve 26 individuals, with those funds. This is a recommendation simply to go back to the FY18 funding level. And again, great work that this organization does, and we believe that they would continue to do that work even at that reduced level, again, the FY18 level. Under State Community Development Program 16.10.1, the first item here is a reduction in funds for the Blight Removal and Code Enforcement Initiative, or the BRACE program. Representative Houston, you will recall this is a program that came out of the Rural Development Council last year, $300,000 in funding. There were no administrative funds attached to this. This was entirely intended to be a grant program for our rural communities, simply to provide, really to address issues of blight, which is a big deal for GMA and ACCG and all of their constituents. So the logic or the thought process here would be that we would grant small grants, $5,000 to a local community. They would put a dumpster in the middle of town, and people would be able to come and discard unwanted items, in the dumpster, so that they, didn't become unwanted eyesores on somebody's front porch. Again, I think the intent here is all about the blight removal, and yet for us, as we cut, and I haven't gotten to the position that I'm referring to, but as we cut one of our grant positions, frankly, we run a lean shop, and that was the person that we had designated in the fourth quarter of the year, in the fall, to help implement that program. Without the resources, we simply weren't able to implement this program, and so that is included in our reductions at the amount of $300,000. 16.10.2 is an elimination of funds for the Cobb County Support Center. This is fairly straightforward. They reached out to us actually before we started our budget cuts, and told us that they didn't need the money. It was to be used to match some federal funds that did not materialize last year. So we eliminated that both in the amended budget as well as in the budget next year. Then 16.10.3, this relates to a recommendation that I will hold and explain to you for in the FY21 budget. But this is elimination of funds for one vacant position, and that totals $85,798. Under State Economic Development Programs, 16.11.1 is the reduction of the funds for a part-time resource, and this is the part-time resource that I was referring to when I spoke about the BRACE program. We had an individual who, quite frankly, had been with the agency for many years, was a fantastic resource, and was able to provide kind of a backstop to all of our grant-making programs, and we hated to lose her, but she retired last summer, and frankly, it was impossible for us to replace that level of knowledge and capability on a part-time basis. So that was part of the cuts that we offered up. 1611.2 is again that non-binding language disregard from the governor, so I won't address that. 16.11.3, I think there's maybe a typo here. It's a reduction in funds for the Regional Economic Business Assistance, or REBA program. Y'all reduced this in last year's budget. Honestly, y'all know that we were working under some direction about 4 and 6% cuts, and so we had to look at every state program. This is a vital program as it provides the state, the Department of Economic Development and DCA and the economic development community with competitive deal funds. But because it makes up so much of our state budget, we had to scrutinize every aspect of our state budget. We're recommending an additional $500,000 reduction here, and we have worked through the pipeline, the outstanding obligations. We believe that this is sustainable, at least in the short term, and you will see it continued in the FY21 budget. The hope is that as the economy turns, we would have a conversation about those funds. But that's $500,000 reduction for the REBA program. And Madam Chair, I believe, at least in the amended, one other item under our. And I'm not going to cover all of the attached agencies because I believe you've got some of them coming in. But
before we go on any further, I forgot to ask you something. 16.8 research and survey.
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
So we have 7 surveys and reports. So examples, we do the hotel motel tax reporting. So we help to provide technical assistance, and then communities across the state have to report those into the state. That comes through DCA. The report of local government finances, as well as the development of the authority finances. And a couple of years ago, thanks to Representative Tankersley, we consolidated, streamlined, good idea. We consolidated the registration, the authority registration, and the report of authority finances. Reports like that, there are 7 of them that we are required to produce. Work with communities across the state to produce those, and that was a vacant position that we offered up as part of our cuts. What I said momentarily, and I might have been moving too quickly, but we are still working on how to streamline the operations and continue to deliver all of those reports. So we're still working on the exercise as we cut that one position.
Now that you mentioned authorities, if they don't report, or do they finally just dissolve, or what happens when they don't report?
So great question, and one that I know not recently, but you and I have had a lot of conversation about in the past. I may foreshadow a piece of legislation this year, but we have consistently worked to help those dormant authorities kind of think about why do they exist. There are different types of authorities, so they don't administratively dissolve. The constitutional authorities that were created before 1986, those are set out in the Constitution. Then there are 2 other ways that authorities can be created. The way that some of those, the local development authorities, dissolve is through the same means they came into existence. And Representative Tankersley is going to help us out with some legislation to allow for the downtown development authorities to dissolve in the same way. But it's not an administrative process that we haven't gotten a report in the last 5 years, therefore you no longer exist.
Because I know it just seems like we get legislation making more authorities, but we never get any dissolve.
Right.
And I know at one time we had something like 500 and something different authorities.
It's a lot more than that.
A lot more than that.
And I will just say that that's something that the regional commissions in parts of the states have been helpful, something that our regional reps try to stay attuned to. So we've not lost that point that we need to manage that. And that's something we can do through this reporting process.
All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The only other item that I have is if you flip back to 16.16.1, the One Georgia Authority, which we manage, we're recommending a $3.675 million reduction for the One Georgia Authority. The rationale here is similar to REBA. We have to scrutinize all of our funds. You will recall 2 years ago when this program was enhanced, and by the way, this sets One Georgia back to its FY18 funding level. But 2 years ago, both the Department of Economic Development and the equity program, which we recommend, were both experiencing a significant uptick in demand. which is why we ask for those funds. We feel confident that we can manage, with this reduced number by, looking at some of the special grants and the like.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Huh?
I think so. No, I'll pull up to it. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, hey, how are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you today?
Good to see you again this year.
Good to see you as well.
We had some concerns about them cutting y'all's budget. I think
Yes,
we
ma'am.
put something in Bainbridge last year.
Correct. And
And-
actually, also, there was funding that was set aside this year for 9 additional counties. And our satellite center will be opening up in fact, tomorrow, Wednesday, on the 29th, one of our satellite offices.
Where will that be?
In Jessup County, Jessup, Georgia. Not Jessup County, but Jessup, Georgia.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
all right. Okay, let's see, where is that in your budget? We wanted to talk to you about what effect is that gonna have by cutting that out of your budget?
Oh, wow. Well, help me. I thought I was speaking in regards to
Okay, they reduced funds to statewide independent living council
Yes.
by
for-
100,000.
Correct. That would be for our home access program, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Okay.
And that is under the Housing Initiative, line 16.9.1 with DCA. Excuse me, the Department of Community Affairs.
Okay, we're talking about 16.9.1. What is the average cost of a project that y'all do on this?
They vary. Most of the projects that we have been working on are ramps, widening of doors. That can range from anything from between $850 and maybe $10,000, depending on the length of the ramp and the various angles that it might have to take. Sometimes those ramps are wood. We are trying to move to modular ramps. So just in case an individual would have to move or, God forbid, pass away anytime soon, those ramps can be repurposed and used elsewhere and or for other people.
About how many projects do y'all do out of the 100,000 a year?
Out of the 100,000, a couple of years ago, we did 16 projects. Last year with $200,000, we actually did 21 projects. Some of those are very extensive. The most extensive project that we did was an external elevator for a double amputee to help him navigate his home. He had 30 steps in which he had to go up and down. And so we were able to provide funding for an external elevator for him and his family. We have worked with everyone from ages 8 to 89. Again, it can be ramps, full bathroom modifications, which would include a roll-in shower, roll under sinks, things of that nature.
Do y'all put in any federal funds?
No, not for this program.
Not for this program?
It's all state funding, unfortunately.
Okay. All right,
we have actually a waiting list. A couple of years ago, that was over 600 people waiting for a home modification. We were able to reduce some of that by 5%. We were down to maybe 574. But as people are hearing about it, of course, our waiting list is starting to increase once again.
and doing 20 a year when you got 500, I mean,
Yeah,
it's gonna take a long time.
it's gonna take a long time. And so, but all the more reason that we really hope that this funding will continue. There used to be funding in the program some years ago before the housing crisis took a hit. And then the funding was taken away. At that particular point, it was actually $300,000. So we're just getting this funding back. And so the centers for independent living, and there are 9 throughout the state, and we have 2 satellite offices, actually work with their local municipalities, churches. Some of the materials are donated whenever we can, find some of those resources. But we try to leverage the state funding as much as possible to try to do more jobs that people may require. So it would take a hit. We were hoping that even with this particular year, we were appropriated $200,000 for the year. The centers were ready to go. We had applications lined up, and we were able actually to spend most of that money down to, I believe, $179,000. So there's 21 left in this year, but we were asked to stop all projects because of the budget cuts. So we were hoping also that we might be able to get that additional 21 for this year, and in hopes that that 100,000 will not be added to next year's budget.
We all do a good job, and I appreciate the work you do, and
Thank
I
you
hope
so
we
much.
can work with you. I can't promise anything,
Absolutely.
but I hope we can work with you.
But, and last question, I know the day is late.
No, we've got to 5 o'clock if you have.
Not so much a question, but I know we can't do it here. But we have a video about our housing access program, and it actually interviews some of the people that we've worked with throughout the state. I put that contact information or the link to that video. I would ask that you would at least view it before you make a final decision. I can't testify for the people who have received some of the services that the Center for Independent Living have provided, but I think it will be able to give you a great perspective as to what the money goes towards. And you can look on the information that are provided. We go throughout the state. Some of the cities I've never even actually heard of. But we try to spread the money evenly throughout the state. But again, there's a lot of people out there who need the assistance, and we really hope that we can continue with this program.
Thank you. Representative Gilliard.
Ms. Simmons,
Yes, sir.
first of all, in Savannah, Georgia, you have life,
Correct.
and you give life. And
Well,
so I
thank
want to commend you. Here again, we see the work, and a lot of times we as representatives, senators, or constitutional officers, a lot of times we don't get a chance to know all about the programs and all the above. And so I commend you on your work, and it's much needed because we see those citizens reaping the benefits. So hopefully, as our chairwoman says, we will see what can be done.
We'll take all the crumbs that that fall off the table.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
I promise to look at the video.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Are there any other questions? Yeah, we got a real
Okay.
question, Representative Morris.
I promise to be quick.
No hurry.
I don't know a lot about this, so
Mhm.
forgive me if I say something
No
stupid
problem.
here, all right? Are you able to take outside funds, like if there are accept funds from groups, let's say Rotary or Kiwanis
Yes.
or something like that?
Yes,
Or a trust? Okay,
Are you a 5013C?
yes, we are.
okay, all right,
Yes, we
thank
are.
you for sharing.
And actually, some of the centers actually work with some of the other entities.
Mhm.
Again, that's some of the money that is leveraged to help for projects that may go beyond what we're willing to pay. We try to put a cap on our projects at 13,500. And if anything goes over that, then the centers will try to leverage that funding. A lot of the projects don't go over, but in some cases that, we do reach that cap.
Well, you'd be hard pressed to do an elevator for that, wouldn't you? I mean, that's
Absolutely.
like a $22,000
Yeah.
to $25,000 purchase typically in a home, right? Okay.
So it took a lot of things, a lot of streams of income to make that actually happen. We also try to get the Boy Scouts involved when it's a simple ramp. We reach out to Home Depot, Lowe's, and again, sometimes they will donate materials for various projects, depending on what it is. So again, we do the best with little, and try to make it stretch as far as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you for taking the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll be back in touch, okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you for the invitation.
That's it, and if y'all have any questions, just get in touch with Morgan or one of the members on here. I'll be glad to help answer any questions you might have. Thank y'all so much for coming.
Let's catch Penny up.